in early 70s, Peter Lougheed was the premier of Alberta and was promoting new business to come in. And Tiger Brand, which was just our company, was growing. So we're trying to expand, to come to Western Canada. So he got in the car, drove, came down to Cardston, Waterton, and as he came around Pincher Creek, he loved it. He says, "This is where I am going to build." And while he was here, he was very surprised how many sunny days, and wrote a letter to Washington, D.C. to figure out in Canada which was the sunniest spot in the year. And they said Pincher Creek, Alberta was a spot. So he says, all right, he made up his mind that that's what he was going to build a factory, and he did. And then when we came to Pincher, the biggest employer in Pincher was Shell. At that time, I was not married. I was working for the company, and I was approached that they were opening a factory, and if I would be interested coming and running just for a little while, 6 months. And when I came, I loved it. The mountains remind me a little bit of Portugal. Jim decided, well, we'll buy a house here. And we looked, and really nothing really satisfied his likings, for the home. Then he decided, well, I don't have to buy a home. Let's build one. And then we found this property came available. We ended up renting a car and parked it on the bottom because, of course, there was no driveways. And we walked the property from the bottom to the back. And he decided, this is it. This is where we're going to build a home. And just to give you a little bit of history, why we call it Wee Mountain, it was because, as you could see the property and where the house sits, it was a little wee mountain. And to flatten it, we put about 100 dynamite around it. And then we ended up calling it Wee Mountain. In 2000, my husband decided, and I decided to sell the home in Ontario and then come and live a more tranquil, lay back, not in a fast lane kind of life, and this was perfect. He knew that my heart was always here. I always liked to come back to Pincher, and we did. So in 2000 we moved, and that's when then the house was not as big as it is today, but in 2000 got a great, facelift, and we've been here since. I love to cook and I entertain a lot, so the kitchen would have been my comfort zone. That's where I'm the happiest. But this where when I'm sitting right now is definitely when to watch the sunsets, when the weather's not so nice to go outside. Will be my second favorite spot. It's so peaceful, and the views change every morning or every day. You get up, if you're drinking a glass of water or you're pouring yourself a cup of coffee, and you look outside, and it always looks, I always feel like I'm looking at it for the first time. There's so much to do. If you're a hiker, wonderful. If you're a skier, you're not very far. If you're a fly fisher, my goodness, it's right there at fingertips. And golfing, there's everything in here. But when I got here, I love gardening. Aside from cooking, I love gardening. And my mom, I think I take after my mom because I could never keep up with her. But when we got here, there was a lot of work to do. And some of our, when we planted these beautiful trees, everything was planted when we arrived here. It was not here on the property. So the trees, and today, they're, I don't know how many stories high, but they survived and doing well. And I am an early riser only because the sun shines right through our bedroom and wakes up, and the colors, I sometimes don't want to miss it. Since we've lived here, we've seen bear, we've seen fox, we've seen elk, moose, deer, the birds galore. There's birds everywhere. And the eagles sometimes do land on the property somewhere, and that's a treat to see that. My husband and I, and he gave me a great lifestyle. He did. He loved to travel, and I was so happy to be part of that. But you've got the mountains, you've got the hills, you've got the greenery. I think to this day, it's just slow down and watch, nature, and it's so beautiful. That's the only thing I would say is just take a step back and enjoy it, because it's here for the take.